San Francisco, where you can actually get a PhD in sexology. Coming up next on Evening Magazine's School for Sexologists, right after...
You've been using one of the
I'm looking at a sexually explicit tape. Good evening, I'm Richard Hart. And this tape is part of a huge film and tape library of sexual materials. As a matter of fact, the largest one in the world. And it's part of a school, actually part of a course here, where you can earn a PhD in sexology at the Human Institute of Sexology in San Francisco. We'll meet a sexologist or two and find out what it's all about, right after Jan tells you about the rest of tonight's show.
Well, before Richard went to his sex class, here's one for 3 units, Advanced Techniques in Bodywork. For 3 units again, Practical Uses of Multimedia Techniques. And let's see, 2 units, Sex and Ethics in the Helping Professions. All I can say is this should be a very interesting story. In our second story, we're going to meet our own super chef, Chef Tell. What's he really like? You'll find out. And our good ideas, Mel Sharp, our man on the street, gets some tips on how to lie. Greg Pace takes us to Khan's restaurant in Chinatown, and Kathy Mann shows us some of Hollywood's more famous car stunts. And now let's join Richard signing up for his very first day in class.
These are the halls of academe, although you're not going to find the pictures hanging in this hallway hanging in any other school. This is the only school of its kind in the world. It's the Institute for Advanced Study of Human Sexuality. And the students who study here, read the books and take the exams like students anywhere, hope to graduate with degrees, masters and PhDs in sexology. Attempts to study sex in a rational, scientific way go back to ancient India and Greece, but there's still little scientific research. Most of what we know we learn from friends or from movies. Most of what we'd like to do is lived out through heroes in books and on the silver screen. To most of us, sex is the furthest thing from science. A lack of scientific standards for sex research led to the founding of an Institute for Sex Study in San Francisco by a Methodist minister, Ted McIlvenna. What is a sexologist?
Sexologist is someone who spends the majority of their time studying about what people do sexually and how they feel about it.
Just what kinds of people take courses in a place like this?
Mostly mid-career professional people, persons already with degrees in other fields who want to specialize in the field of sexology. May range anywhere from teachers to ministers to doctors to people in all the kinds of helping professions.
I think the reason I want to be a sexologist is because I really believe that sexual health is an integral part of our total health. And that seems to be the area that has had the least non-judgmental research and the least education done in it. And I really would like to contribute to people's sexual health.
Well, most people assume that being a sexologist is something rather exciting and challenging, and that we do all different kinds of interesting, weird things, which is not true.
One of the things I've learned out here at the Institute as a student is that there's a terrific need to educate even the people in the society who think that they know a lot about sexuality, because in fact they're passing on a lot of misinformation.
When I went to medical school, which goes back to 1958, that's when I graduated, nobody said anything about sexuality except from a reproductive point of view.
I think my view of sexuality has expanded in a sense. I've really become aware over the years from talking to people about what they do and how they feel about it and how they feel about their sexuality. I've become aware of how universal sexuality is and yet how individual, like a fingerprint, each person's sexuality is to them.
It's really decreased my burden of sexual guilt, and I think that's an important factor about this particular program.
The greatest change within myself has been, I feel that I'm much more accepting about the range of sexual behaviors of other people.
How's my sex life? Well, one of the things that, as I said before, that's unfortunate, I think, in a way about being in the sex field is the more I study sex, the less time I have for sex.
The courses at the Institute read like courses at any college. There are 2 units here for history of erotic art, 3 units for field research in the gay community, and sex, geriatrics, and disability. The academic dean responsible for the courses is Dr. Wardell Pomeroy, the co-author of the famous Kinsey reports.
Yes, I think there was a profound change in our culture, starting around 1965 and lasting into the early 70s. And this has been called a sexual revolution, and in a sense it has been. It hasn't been a revolution in terms of what people actually do sexually. That's remained pretty constant. But the openness about the discussion of sex, the very fact that you have this program on now, you probably wouldn't have had it on 5 to 8 years ago.
What does somebody have to do to graduate, to get a degree?
It's comparable to other graduate schools in terms of getting a PhD, for example. It'll take a minimum of more like 3 to 4 years to get it. It's a tough course.
What role do all the films and all the videotapes play in the education process here?
In no other field that I know of are people stopped from watching what happens. If you're interested in digestion or circulation or whatever, you are actually given the privilege to watch. Sex is a different matter, so we try to overcome that by giving advantage of having films that people can actually view to see what people actually do sexually.
I think the message that I would like to get out to people is that your body is your own, and it's a good, positive, beautiful thing, and you own it, and it's yours to do with whatever you want.
Take the time to understand your sexuality and the sexuality of others. It will help you have a better sex life and help us all to manage sex better in American society.
Having a PhD in sexology doesn't make you better at it. But even though we don't go on to get our PhDs in accounting or chemistry, we do use accountants or chemists when we have a problem. You may not want to study sex beyond the high school level, but it's nice to know there's a professional out there. Jan and I will be back in just a minute.